Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. We're about to embark on an interesting little video concept here, a tier list, where I'm going to be going over what is, according to Billboard, the top 10 songs, the top 10 singles of the year 2010. If you guys dig it, we will continue forward and do the rest of the years of the 2010s, but I thought it would be funny to get a little nostalgia, maybe trash some songs at the top of the charts, and see what lurks down in the memory hole of pop music over a decade ago. Before we get into the tier list here, let me give a quick shout out to our sponsor over here, good people over at The Ridge, still making these amazing, minimalist, sleek, fantastic metal-plated wallets that fit nicely in that front pocket. Hit up that link down below, promo code MELON, 10% off the order. That's all you have to know. All right, we are going to start with a beggar over here. Teo Cruz's Break Your Heart. Whoa, oh. I'm not really crazy about this one, honestly. I think that it's a pretty generic piece of dance pop. The ludicrous feature is a tad bit cringe, as most hip-hop pop crossovers were around this era. Production is really flavorless. Cruz, as a vocalist, I get nothing from, and I think this track is far from his best written as far as choruses go. Yeah, just like really run-of-the-mill dance pop, whose production I think has aged very badly as dance pop and dance production in general has progressed so far past the point that it was at in the 2010s. I would put this in the D category. It is pretty much below mid, but not offensive to the ears or anything like that. Next, we have another Cruz track, Dynamite, which, yeah, Cruz was really killing it on the charts in 2010. What more could you say? I actually like this one a lot more. Does it suffer from a lot of the same production flaws and issues as the last track? Is the auto-tune a little heavy-handed? Are the vocals mediocre? Yes, but Dynamite does contain one of the catchiest pop choruses of the 2010s, hands down. This is not arguable. We're gonna light it up and like it's dynamite. I do think it is a good and fun chorus. So yeah, I would put it in the C category. I think it's mildly likable as far as like a top 10 song goes. Next in the list here, we have a heavy hitter. We have Lady Gaga, Bad Romance. Going through this top 10, listening to all the songs, refamiliarizing myself with all these tracks because I've heard them, believe me, and I've heard them plenty of times in the era in which they were popular. Bad Romance is one that I knew going into it would have aged the best, and actually after, listening to it again, because The Fame Monster is still my favorite Gaga project. I still think it's her best. In fact, Bad Romance has aged the best out of all of these tracks in this top 10 list. The song still sounds amazing. Production is still banging. Doesn't sound dated, doesn't sound old, doesn't sound crappy or cheap. Doesn't sound like it's kind of missing something or some extra flavor or texture or whatever. And it's like firing on all cylinders in terms of vocal performance, songwriting, lyrics, the beat and instrumental, the groove, just everything. Still love this track to this day. I still think it's one of Lady Gaga's best singles, and certainly one of the best pop singles of the 2010s. Is it a little over the top and grating in some aspects? Yes, but being over the fucking top is Lady Gaga's brand. No, I love the fuck out of this track. I think it's great. I would put it in the S tier, hands down. As far as like a top 10 Billboard track goes, it's fantastic. It's amazing. It's really everything I want in a hit. It's checking all of those basic formulaic boxes, but it's doing it with style. It's doing it with flair. It's doing it with a panache. Banger. Love it. All right, next up we have Eminem with Love the Way You Lie featuring Rihanna. This is kind of an interesting track. It comes from an era in Eminem's discography, that whole recovery era, that I'm not really a big fan of, was not a big fan of it when it came out. However, Eminem's recent creative choices, some of them anyway, really do make me miss this time. They really truly do. Yeah, I think the beat on this track is weak. I think the acoustic guitar in the background is whack. However, the Rihanna chorus is very solid, still holds up really well, and I think Eminem, even though he sounds so angry, he's fighting for his life. The passion of this track is infectious, and I do enjoy his rapping on this song a lot more than what he's doing now with this like weird, jittery, constipated robot flow that he can't seem to get the hell out of with a lot of his recent tracks. At least on this song, even though he is like enraged in a way that is a little much, a little over the top, he still does sound human. He still does sound relatable. It is still enjoyable to hear Eminem's voice at this point instead of this herky jerky weird shit he's got going on flow wise. I would give this one a C. I think it's somewhat likable. It aged better than I thought it had before I heard it. Yeah, I'd put it in C. It's decent as far as a hit goes. All right, next we are going with B.O.B. Airplanes. Haley Williams. I'm going to throw this one in B, honestly. Yeah, is it a little melodramatic with the airplane shit and the wishing shit and obviously like, you know, the Paramore and emo tie-in? Yes, but as far as like a hip hop, pop, and rock crossover goes, this one's not too bad. It's aged pretty well. A lot of B.O.B.'s rhymes are solid, and I think Haley was incorporated into the track tastefully. There are far worse examples of similar stuff later in this video, as you will see. It's kind of funny and interesting to look back on tracks like this and think about the state of hip-hop and emo at that time, considering how many hip-hop and trap and emo fusions there are today and how that's so prevalent. I don't think B.O.B. and Haley Williams could have seen this coming when they put out Airplanes. So yeah, shout out to B.O.B. and Haley Williams on that one. Digging that one. I think that one is aged fairly well. Next, we are going with Usher, OMG. Time to stop being nice on this one. This track is quite possibly, out of this entire list, the biggest crock of shit. The biggest, heftiest, smelliest, most disgusting crock of shit we're going to talk about in this video. Beat is trash. Usher uses way too much fucking autotune. It's kind of weird. Usher is a totally capable singer, does not need autotune, and yet it is so overused and so heavy-handed on this track. It ruins his singing, but the thing is, simultaneously, you could tell his vocal performance behind the autotune kind of sucks ass and is like way below what we expect as far as Usher standards go. We have this overuse of autotune. The singing performance itself is awful. Doesn't even really sound like Usher. And on top of that, the lyrics are cringe as fuck. Oh, also furthermore, he's barely on fucking beat for most of the track. This song is a fucking mess. How is this in the top 5? This is ass. This is shit. This is piss. Like, when you talk about the charts being filled with garbage, like you think about tracks like this. This is handily one of the worst songs of the 2010s and is not just like way below subpar for the mainstream as far as like writing and production goes, but also just like what sounds like the base levels of talent going into the song, like Usher and Will.i.am, pretty like experienced music vets in the industry at the point of 2010, and yet they make a song that sounds like some dudes who have been producing and writing for maybe a year or two. The writing is awful. It sounds like trash. It's just completely unpleasing, and the dance elements of the production have aged very badly. There is a lot of very well-intentioned complaining about the way in which things like TikTok or Spotify have negatively influenced the sound of popular music, but believe me, that is nothing compared to the ways in which radio and club DJs inspired artists to come out with bullshit, fucking horse shit like this. I would rather listen to any TikTok hit any day over this fucking crap. All right, next we have Katy Perry, California Girls, with Snoop Dogg in the mix as well. Look, as far as California Girls, though, I think it is a like good and competently written little pop song. It's fun, it's flirty, it is idyllic, it's got the right amount of escapism. However, I do think the Snoop Dogg tie-in is really annoying, like some of the ad-libs and, you know, references that he hits us with at the start of his verse and as he's kind of entering going into that are really fucking awkward and it just feels so out of place. Plus, on top of that, the dance pop production is dated as fuck. There are 90s songs and songs from the 2000s that sound way fucking better than this. Like, take any old Britney Spears song and the production on that track, or like a Backstreet Boys song, and it sounds a million times better than the production on this track. It's kind of funny how badly a lot of the pop production of the early 2010s has aged in such a short period of time, and California Girls is a prime example of it. Now, I mean, I don't think that's Katy Perry's fault or anything like that. She was working with what she had, and the production did what it needed to at the time. It was in vogue, but yeah, I think instrumentally the track has aged kind of like old moldy fucking cheese, even if the song at the core of the track and Katie's vocals are pretty solid. All right, next, this song also I have quite a bit of hate for. Maybe not necessarily because when I listen to it, I think it's one of the worst things I've ever heard. I think it is a competently written little tune with a decent yelpy, boyish lead vocal and some acoustic guitars. Look, it's quaint, it's cute, but the reason I dislike this track and it just sort of makes my skin crawl is because like this song, the instrumental palette for this song is like pretty much the archetype for all of the shitty, cheery, royalty-free acoustic or ukulele background music that you hear on YouTube every fucking day, or it was much more prominent, in the early and mid 2010s. Like this Train song is like basically the track. Like this is ground zero for shitty acoustic YouTube music. While I know that's not necessarily Train's fault or responsibility, you put out the song and you have no control over who it inspires or what it influences beyond that point. I'm willing to, forgo any kind of charitability here and say, Train, what you've done here is awful. You've done a bad thing. I will never forgive you, and you should be ashamed. All right, next we have Lady Antebellum's Need You Now. I'm going to give this one the D. What I find so funny about this track is like how little aesthetics and production has progressed in the mainstream country world, because this kind of like soulless, flavorless, no fucking seasoning country instrumentation like still sells and still does numbers today. You could come out with this track today and it would probably still turn heads, because like country music, as far as the mainstream goes, has been this fucking soulless for over a decade. Is the tune or the vocal work at the core of this track necessarily bad? No, but aesthetically it's trash and boring and has no personality whatsoever. It's a wet goddamn blanket. All right, finally, the last track that we're talking about here, it is Kesha, TikTok. This song is kind of interesting for a lot of reasons, and it's difficult for me personally to actually like throw this in the tier list somewhere, because it does elicit a real mix of emotions from me. Like, as far as dance pop production goes, out of all these tracks here, not counting the Usher one, because the Usher one really is, down deep in hell. But I will say that this track does give even the Usher song a run for its money in terms of its dance pop production aging like trash, like aging awfully in every single way that dance pop production could age badly. This song ages badly. This song ages awfully. But by that same token, there is really like this almost kind of punky, ridiculous, I don't give a fuck kind of attitude that I find enjoyable and cheeky and hilarious about the song. There are still lyrics on this track, like the opening line, that I remember very fondly and I think are funny and I think make for, just great pop earworms. But simultaneously, there are other bars on the track that are quite cringe and belong in the, in the toilet. However, Kesha's weird ass party girl, 3 sheets to the wind, I don't care about anything kind of energy that she was bringing to singles like this is kind of what made her unique. Even though there are elements of this track that have aged badly, I'm glad in some respects that societally mainstream music has progressed past songs like this, and I'm very glad that Kesha is in a different point in her career creatively. With all of that being said, this is one of the few tracks on this record that I think has aged in a somewhat unflattering fashion. However, I almost have like some nostalgia glasses on for it. You know what I mean? It does remind me of the 2010s, the early 2010s, in almost like kind of a positive way, which some of the other crappy songs here most definitely do not. Maybe like a low B or a high C. I'd put it somewhere in there. Put it somewhere in there. It's cute. It's likable, but it just kind of feels like a relic that I'm only listening to for nostalgia purposes, essentially. There you go. According to Billboard, the top 10 songs of 2010, tiered out, the good, the bad, and the ugly, ugly, ugly. And yeah, that is that. Let me know your thoughts on these tracks, if you've heard any of them, all of them, and you're the best. Love you. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, 2010s, tier list, forever.